Good morning. Welcome to Alverno College. Are you enjoying preview day so far? Wonderful. I'm going to use the microphone only because my friend Tim is recording, and I want to make sure that they can get it all. I understand that you could probably hear me without it, but also I like holding a microphone, so I'm going to do that too. So my name is Megan Walsh. I am the Director of Alumni Engagement, and I have the privilege to host a panel this morning of our recent graduates of Alverno College, our alumna. Fun Latin lesson. We call them the Department of Alumni Engagement because we're a women's college. So anyone who's good at conjugating understands that AE is what denotes a group of women. And then we have alumna, not alumni or alumnuses. That's wrong already. So welcome. I just want to do a quick, since we have a smallish group, I'm wondering if we could, the students could explain to us what they're looking at studying here at Alverno, and so we can sort of tailor Kalima and Candace's answers to your specific questions. So if you don't mind, students and parents, if you know what your student is studying, if you could just share your name and their hopeful field. We can start over here, if you're willing.
Hi. So my name is Shivani, and I'm looking into psychology.
My name is Angelica, and I am a mother. My daughter is looking into
Great.
I'm Melanie. I'm looking to go into environmental.
My name is Mackenzie, and I'm wanting to live in education.
My daughter's name is Celia, and she wants to run education.
Great. Awesome. So we have a wide range. That's wonderful. So the best part about Alverno, though, is that while neither of these two ladies share a major with what you'd like to study, everyone gets to experience the liberal arts, and so we can focus our attention on how that looks for the various majors as well, too. So, like I said, I'm Megan, and my wonderful panelists here are recent graduates of Alverno. So we'll start with Candace Hill. Candace, if you could wave. This is Candace. Candace graduated in May 2016, and her degree was in nursing. She's currently public health nurse for the city of Milwaukee, so she works in the Empowering Families of Milwaukee program, which is a home visit program. While she was at Alverno, she was a Doherty Scholar, which I'm sure you'll hear more about if you're interested in the Center for Academic Excellence, and a Roosevelt Scholar, and I'll let her explain that a little bit more. She was a member of, I think, BSNA is probably Black Student Nursing Association, and Circle K, and also a residence associate. You lived in the dorms while here at Alverno, and then coordinated a lot of our monthly volunteer programs at St. Ben's, so you were a busy gal. And currently, you're volunteering, in addition to being a home nurse, or a nurse for the city of Milwaukee, with a Syrian and Burmese refugee program here in Milwaukee. Maybe I'll let you explain that a little bit too. And she explained, so I heard you heard me say she was a nurse. When I asked her what her favorite classes were at Alverno, she said historical research, Latin American literature, civil rights, and sociology 101. So none of them were nursing classes. So you really get to experience all of the liberal arts while you're here at Alverno. So that's great. So thank you, Candace. And then our second panelist is Kalima, and I always say your last name wrong. Al-Mujahid. Okay, good. Kalima Al-Mujahid. So Kalima graduated in May of 2018. She was a global studies major with a support in sociology. She currently is the administrative support and project specialist at the Metropolitan Milwaukee Association of Commerce. While she was here, she won the Emerging Student Leader Award. Recently, she completed Project Lead with the United Way. If you're not familiar, that's a great program for young professionals who are looking to serve on nonprofit boards. She didn't write down that she also worked in my office, and currently still supports Alverno for volunteerism, like being here today, giving back to our career and professional development, what's it called? Dress for Success or Attire for Hire program. And her favorite class was any class with David Brooker, so shout out David Brooker's in the back of the room. If you're interested in global studies at all, even as a support, or if you're going to be a teacher and your favorite class is going to be sociology, you can ask them how that works. So we're just going to do some questions, and I thought I'd sprinkle in the opportunity for you to ask questions. So don't feel like you have to wait till the end of the session. If you have a question that bubbles up from something they say, just give me a wave and I'll give you a second to ask it. Sound good? Great, so we're just gonna get started with, ladies, if you could each describe to us what made you choose to attend Alverno College.
So for me, I was in your position today. I attended a preview day, and I remember feeling really comfortable on campus. And because I attended a really small Catholic high school, I was not used to like big campuses like Marquette and UWM. And then I actually didn't know anyone who attended Alverno, but during the preview day, I had a panel and connected with some girls that I met during the sessions, and I was just really impressed. But obviously, like the obstacle for me was I wanted to pursue nursing, and Alverno is not the most inexpensive school, so I had to do some research for a scholarship, and that's how I found the Roosevelt program. And I found it to be really beneficial for me, and I would encourage everyone to look at the scholarships Alverno offers. But as a nursing student, I would say the biggest draw for Alverno is the direct entry into nursing. I know no one here is a nursing major, but I know a lot of people who attended UWM and Marquette and had to be on waiting list, and I just was very interested in just getting into nursing right away. So.
I chose Alverno because I took a tour here and I felt comfortable. I felt like the girls that gave me a tour really cared about me and they wanted me to come to their campus. I also liked all the different student activities that I could get involved in and the fact that I could join and create my own student organization if I chose. I was also really interested in the different majors here. It wasn't like all the majors offered at like UWM where it's very technical. I felt like I would get really hands-on work here. And the 8 abilities and not having grades was also something that I was interested in because I went to an online high school where the grading system was based on basically 1, 2, 3, and 4 levels. And so I wasn't used to getting a GPA already. So coming to Alverno really helped me adapt, and I felt like the feedback that I got instead of just a grade helped me continue to develop professionally and both academically.
Thank you. Before I ask my next question on my list, I wanted to spend a second on scholarships because I know that both of you received scholarships while you're here. So if you could talk a little bit about how you identify scholarships, the scholarship application process, basically just financial aid in general, what you remember about how that process felt originally, and then also maybe as you got near the end, what that sort of looked like for you.
For me, I just happened to be Googling financial aid for Alverno, and I saw the Roosevelt scholarship, and I saw that the deadline was approaching pretty soon. And if I can remember correctly, it required a letter of recommendation and maybe 2 letters responding to a prompt, and then you had to interview with like a panel of people, and there were like 10 other candidates, so it was kind of selective because only one freshman could be a Roosevelt scholar. And that scholarship is based around servant leadership. So when you do that application, it's very important to highlight different volunteer opportunities that you did in school, things that you're interested in with social activism or social justice, and things that you just want to implement on campus, because I feel like that reward is sort of it wants to kind of facilitate the growth of someone who is entering Alverno and planning to plant seeds for something bigger. And so I think when we did the interviews, well, I was a part of the interviews my senior year, so I was able to see girls in my position trying to get the scholarship, and it was really cool to see just like them being in my position. So I would encourage all of you all to try that scholarship and all the other ones too, just Googling and looking online. There's just a lot of information, and I feel like it was very beneficial for me, so.
That's great.
Yeah.
Before you go, Khalima, I just want to interject, not all of the scholarships are that rigorous of a process. The Roosevelt Scholarship is one of 2 full ride scholarships that Alverno has, but it's definitely worth the application because it's a full ride scholarship, and they do even if you don't get that scholarship, there are other incentives for having applied for it. Plus, you've done a lot of the really hard work that's necessary for other scholarships. So I'll let Kalima explain that a little bit.
So the work that you do at Alverno can help you get into other scholarships that are offered from donors in the community. So scholarships that I would apply for would come through my department. So like I was in sociology department, so when they would send a scholarship through, I would go ahead and apply, and usually it was just like a 500 word essay. So it wasn't as rigorous as like a full ride scholarship, and I would just apply to those, which helped me not have to take out a lot of loans until my last semester of my junior year. I also applied to outside scholarships that were offered through the financial aid office or the admissions office. One that I applied for was the Wisconsin, I think, Association of Independent Colleges. They offer a lot of private scholarships to schools like Alverno. And then all I would have to do for that is go to Madison, which was a great experience, and speak on my experience at Alverno, learn more about other independent and private colleges in Wisconsin too.
And then I want to add, I remember even when you're at Alverno and you're interested in studying abroad, there's opportunities to get like a scholarship to sort of cover like the plane ticket and things like that. So I participated in a program for a class in Ireland, and I was able to sort of cover that, the cost of that through like just applying through the cultural department, I believe. And it was pretty generous. I think it was $1,000 given to people. You just sort of have to explain what you plan to do with the study abroad experience, and I found that to be really helpful. So.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think they call those travel ships. Yeah, so any questions about scholarship to our admissions office is wonderful, but there's also a full scholarship website now on Alverno's page where you can go visit. So I want to step back into the sort of, now that you've graduated from Alverno and you're out in the community, I know I hear occasionally that alums share that people will say, oh, you must have gone to Alverno. Or once they find out you went to Alverno, they're like, oh, what's that like? So when someone finds out you went to Alverno, or when they notice you went to Alverno, what's the thing you always tell them about your experience here? What was the most, what's the thing you point out to them?
For me, obviously right away they noticed that it was an all-women's college, and they point that out right away. But I always tell people that it was very unique. It wasn't easy or breezy, but I feel like the school has so many built-in supports. So even when you're dealing with those harder classes and you're getting to your junior and senior year, the community environment is so small and close and very family-oriented, I would even say, that you have that support. Because I think people get intimidated by private schools in general. So I would probably tell them that usually. So it was really supportive.
I feel like people, when they notice that I'm from Alverno, it's because of the way that I present myself. I feel like a lot of Alverno alum, we take the 8 abilities very seriously, and we take it with us, and it becomes professionally developed within us, so we kind of come off a certain way. Like we will speak, we have great communication in public, and we are great working in teams. Like at my office, the Metropolitan Association of Commerce, for short, the Chamber of Commerce for the city of Milwaukee, there's 4 alum there, and they love hiring alums. Our interns are always alums. The community out there loves us, and that was a great thing to know, especially when it's told to me on preview day that alums get jobs really easy, and we don't really worry about what other college students have to worry about, that gap. Like people want to work with us because we are able to be teachable and coachable.
I would add to that and say like the networking in Milwaukee, like all the alums that work in Frederick, in the city of Milwaukee, and Aurora, we have so many connections. And even when I was doing my clinical as a nursing student, I remember other nurses would say, oh, you're the Alverno nurses. We can tell the difference between other schools. And so I think we have a really good reputation, and I didn't really come to appreciate that more until I was looking for a job, basically. It really shows, like you really do notice.
So you both sort of hit on the 8 abilities, which I think are always kind of a mystifying thing at first if you're not familiar with an abilities-based curriculum. So I'm wondering if you could sort of describe how you use the 8 abilities in your professional life, and what ability maybe do you think that you use the most, and maybe spend a little bit of time on that specifically.
As a nurse, or any really position where you're working with patients or like the population, I would say communication is something that I use on a daily basis. Just sort of expressing my thoughts and even actively listening to people is a part of communication. And then behind that, I would say social interaction is probably something I use very frequently. I think at Alverno, there was a lot of group projects that we did, and it was very stressful, and I remember thinking, oh, what's the point of working in groups and collaborating? But truthfully, when you do enter the real world, very few jobs are just, oh, you're working on your own and you're not working with others. So all those projects they assign, all those things you do with other people, I can't stress enough how important that is. So I probably use those 2 the most.
I would say for me, I use developing a global perspective a lot, because the Chamber of Commerce, we focus with a lot of different businesses. We also work with our community. We also work with the international community. Part of my job is certifying different exports for businesses so that their products can make it to other countries. And I have to make sure that I'm aware of what the other country needs and what we have to put on pieces of paper, and also what our country needs, so that we can send products out and continue to make money. Here, I feel the next one that I use the most is social interaction. I have to create a lot of networks between individuals and companies, making sure that the businesses are prospering as well as the individuals themselves. We have a lot of networking events for our business community at the Chamber of Commerce, so that's a lot of social interaction. Again, communication too, so making sure that I'm communicating business reports properly, or economic research, or whatever it is they might have me do for the day.
How about your personal lives? Do you use the 8 abilities in your personal lives at all, you think?
I think I would say so, because especially with fine-tuning it through my job, because it's really interesting because at the health department, a lot of Alverno alums are in management, so our performance review is based on the 8 abilities in the self-assessment model, yes. And so that's something we actually have to think about actively and apply. And I just feel like organically, just doing it at work so often, I feel like I've picked up on things. Maybe more so than as a student, where I was doing it for a grade or a positive review or whatever. But yeah, I feel like it's like adapted and into me, I guess.
I feel the same way, especially when I first got my review. That was pretty interesting. They were like, how do you feel you communicate with your coworkers? How do you feel you socially interact with this, and that? And I was surprised, and I feel like, just like Candace said, we're always fine-tuning those 8 abilities. Once you get them down and you go through all these courses and you get your job in the real world, you really understand why Alverno's curriculum is the way it is. And I feel like I've become even more appreciative of my experience at Alverno while being an alum in the real world.
So one of the things I hear alums say often is that while self-assessment is maybe a little bit painful while you're here, it's super helpful in the real world. So how would you say your ability to self-assess, to take constructive feedback, to give constructive feedback, compares to your peers who maybe didn't come to Alverno?
I think it's pretty incredible, like the difference I see, even not to call anyone out, but people in higher positions are not comfortable with self-assessing, and it's not really ingrained in a lot of like organizations to have everyone sort of review their performance in front of someone. So I just feel like it's just easier, like I don't take it as personal because I'm used to evaluating myself. But I think when I first started and I first was out of high school, I did sort of take it like more like personal, I guess. But you just get so used to it and it becomes more natural to you, I would say.
I feel exactly the same way. I don't feel like I take it personally, but I feel like a lot of coworkers or people in upper management take feedback very personally. I feel like it's very important that you go out there and you let coworkers know so that they're able to professionally develop, but also be willing to work on yourself as well. I notice that some days when I'm having a bad day, I might display more blocking behaviors than I would another day. And these are things you learn in social interaction. And then it's easier for me to apologize or correct behavior when working with coworkers, which then also develops relationships, furthering my network in the community. So I feel like Alverno really just keeps you tied and really keeps you on your feet. And that continues to help you develop both professionally and personally.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. I feel like that's one of the things I hear often from alums is just sort of the 8 abilities and self-assessment when you're here are one thing, but when you're in the world, you get it. It's sort of, it's part, their real life, and they help set you apart. So are there any other questions about the 8 abilities or our self-assessment model or what Klima meant when she said blocking before we move on to some other questions?
Yeah, what's blocking?
Blocking behavior would be like crossing your arms, but not the way that you are, because you're intently listening and leaning forward. Like if your coworker was saying, "I need you to do blah blah blah," and you're sitting there like this, or like you're on your phone, or like you're not paying attention. That would be a blocking behavior. And one of the first experiences here at Alverno is social interaction 101, right? And then we sit at a table, kind of like you all are, and we have to talk about. I believe it's. I don't know what it is now, but like I had a session and it was about politicians and you had to choose which politician you all thought was the best one, and you guys have to agree, or if you don't come to agreement, at least come to some sort of kind of consensus, but do it in a way where you're not blocking or talking too much and like not allowing everybody at the table to have the floor.
They observe you too.
Yeah.
Feedback
Yeah.
based on like that one session. So.
Yeah. And then they give you feedback right away, and they'll say, hey, you didn't speak up, or you were talking too much and you blocked out the other people and they didn't get to say what they wanted about their candidate. So, stuff like that.
Which is, it's probably very intimidating to be the person who is being watched. I get to social interaction assess, and it's so much fun, but it's also very, very real. And I see myself in meetings observing other people's behaviors, observing my behavior, assessing how I can fix it in the middle. So all of that, you're going to be in meetings no matter what your job is. And so the ability to interact effectively within them is important to get your point across, but not stifle any other good ideas. So all of that is part of the social interaction. And that's the first level. By the time you graduate, you can social interact your way around anything. So, I guess my next question is sort of about something you mentioned, Candace. The first thing people say is, oh, isn't that a women's college? And so I wonder, there may be some hesitation in the room about what it means to go to a women's college. Why would you go to a single-sex education school, all of that. So if you could explain what a women's college meant to you while you were here, and also what it's meant to you professionally now that you've left as well.
I think, initially I was a little apprehensive about it because, all my friends in high school were going to colleges that were more traditional and co-ed. And I can see how some people are hesitant about the idea of being only surrounded by women, especially if you live in the dorm. It is kind of like an adjustment. But I hear like a lot of people say, oh, I want like a typical college experience, and I want to live in dorms where there's parties with boys and little things like that. And as someone who lived in the dorm, just know that Marquette and UWM are accessible if you want to just have fun or experience that. And there's also fun here on campus. But really the core, I feel like, of a women's college is not to separate you from men for like reasons to protect you or anything. I think it's meant to sort of help you navigate the world as a woman and feel confident with doing that. And I think that has been like really eye-opening. Like since I've graduated, I've definitely noticed the difference. And I think that is very underrated about women's colleges. So.
I feel like when I came to Alverno, I was a young girl, and I feel like when I left, I was a young woman. And I liked that transformation. I felt like I could be here and I could be Kalima al-Mujahid, and I could love it and I could own it, and I would have friends around me that would support me. And I feel like I would learn from the other women in my class because Alverno isn't really traditional. We have women from all ages sitting next to us in different aspects of life. Some women may have 3 kids and a husband, and some women may be fresh out of high school, and those experiences are what teach you how to interact with other women in the world, in the real world, because they may not have had that experience at Alverno, and they may not have learned to accept their insecurities or accept who they are by having such a wonderful community and a small community around them. Today on Facebook when I arrived, I said I'm back home, #Alverno Strong, because I feel like this is my real home and this is where I was able to grow and become who I am today. And it's helped me continue to adapt and build and just work with women in the community. It's helped me appreciate women. The first thing that I did when I got to my job is because I believe tampons and pads should be free. I made a little tampon pad box and put in the bathroom for the women. Because here at Alverno I learned that it was okay to ask a girl next to me in class or even at the lunch table if she had a tampon or pad. And it made that not a scary experience for me as a young woman transitioning into the professional field. It helped me accept me as a woman fully and wholly. And I think that's a really great aspect that Alverno has, and it's a secret gem of the college itself. I feel like I left with sisters, and I feel like Candace is my sister, and Megan is my sister, and if I ever needed anything, I could call them first.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, seeing Kalima today, I haven't seen her in a while, but it was like, oh, hey, Kalima, because we've done so much together. I remember when our time at Alverno, and one thing to add, like, it becomes, like, the norm, I guess. You don't really think about it after a while. And I think that was really beautiful what you said about how it's like a sisterhood. It really does feel like that.
I feel like I feel safe in my Milwaukee Public Health just because Candace is a nurse there. So I feel like it's a community that stays with you, and it's going to be one of your biggest communities if you choose to stay here and be an alum here with this college.
So one of the criticisms I often hear when I'm explaining what Alverno College is to people that have not been a part of our community is, oh, but won't your students not know how to interact with men? And so I would just love for you to tell me, have you noticed it's harder for you to interact with men, or are you okay?
Yeah, it's really funny because, you know, you spend your whole life sort of adapting to interact with men. And I think, if anything, this is more transformative because it teaches you how to sort of overcome those barriers that I feel like a lot of women become more smaller in the presence of men, or feel more shy, or don't feel as comfortable. And so it's just not, it's not a barrier for us to have that experience at all. So we're fine.
I'd say it's definitely not experience. I feel like it's more so of an experience for the men. I feel like they have to learn to adapt to an Alverno woman. It's just kind of a thing.
All right, so I want to ask one more question. It's 10:30, so we have 15 minutes. So I would spend as much time as you'd like on this question, but I'd also love to sort of have some questions from the audience. I'm sure they have some by now too. So my last question is, what is something that you're really proud to have accomplished since graduating, personal or professional, that you feel Alverno helped you be able to achieve?
For me, it would be my my career decision as a nurse. As you heard, I am a public health nurse with the city of Milwaukee. I don't work in a hospital, so I do more public health nursing in a community setting. And I remember being extremely afraid to do that and feeling really insecure and not really decided. But I was able to sort of establish a mentorship my senior year with an alum who did a lot of work in the community and ran a clinic for homeless people. And I was able to sort of shadow her, and I just got a lot of like advice from her and reassurance, as well from a lot of the advisors at Alverno and my professors. And I think if I didn't have that, I would have done the expected, I guess, decision with my career and not had the courage to sort of do something different. but I'm really happy that I had that, so.
I'd say my career choice too. I would say working for the Metropolitan Association of Commerce for Milwaukee in the 7-county region, because I'm also under Milwaukee 7. I've learned a lot about my home city, and I've also been able to work in many different aspects of global studies. Although I'm working just mainly in Milwaukee, I get to interact with the world and companies from different places. We were able to bring a company, Haribo, that makes the gummy bears here to the Wisconsin, so that's going to be pretty interesting. They're going to be making a manufacturing site for that. So I've been able to work within business because that was always my goal, but I didn't want to have a business degree. I wanted global studies because it was more something that I could learn about cultures and more about people and sociology. So I was able to still work in business but also have that sociology feel. I'm able to also dip into education because we worry about our talent pipeline and who are going to be our next workers and who's the next generation. So I get to learn about what schools are doing and how they're going to be able to make workers for companies and stuff like that. So I feel like Alverno really helped me be a well-rounded person, and that was the point of like a liberal arts college. You get to learn and take all those different classes, and all the classes, even outside my major, like sociology, psychology, all of that has really helped me become a project specialist. That was an added title. I was able to work under the vice president of the chamber on a project called the Diversity Research Initiative, and our goal is to make sure that we have more Hispanic and African American managers in the city of Milwaukee, because the prosperity for the city of Milwaukee is the lowest out of all the other metropolitan regions. So I was able to apply everything that I've learned here and the interactions I've had with women here and stuff like that into the work I do, and I feel like that was one of my biggest accomplishments in my career so far.
Great, thank you both. Are there any questions from the audience? Don't be scared.
I just have a comment. I'm a retired person, did school already. I'm impressed with all of you and the way you speak out. It's excellent. Let me just tell you, a lot of the world out there I've been in all male environments and they take over. So it's really good when women can speak up and have a voice, because you need to, because the guys will shut you down, and they just, it's getting better, but it's really good that we're training young women to speak up and be confident, and then you know how to deal with, the good ones and the ones that ones, but and how to manage things. So I think I'm really impressed.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that we work really hard on sort of finding your voice and owning your voice, and maybe we could, so you're playing the passport game today where everyone gets an 8 abilities, so you'll get your effective citizenship chip just for showing up today. But maybe ladies, if each of you could sort of define what effective citizenship means to you, and maybe give an example of how you used it here at Alverno, or how you see yourself using it out in the world. There's lots of examples of this one that I see in both of you all the time, so that'll be great.
I can't remember, were you here when we did the Black Lives Matter?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I remember there was like, I was living on campus and there were a couple of students in response to some of the things that were happening in the news regarding police brutality. We were sort of just upset and